If you believe the propaganda by the United States about itself, it is the role model of democracy. Washington claims to be populated by trustworthy politicians who do the right thing. But the public aren't so sure. They're not happy about the fact that their politicians have time and again committed the country to often difficult, troublesome and violent international situations. Many objected to the intervention in Afghanistan. Others feel uneasy about the ongoing problems in Iraq, where the war has cost thousands of American lives and billions of American dollars. On the home front, internal social and economic problems continue to cause misery and hardship to the residents of America itself. As the world drifts away from depending on the USA, doubts in America about its internal affairs risk making Washington even less certain in its footing upon the world stage. So do the American people feel that the colossal military investment is worth it? Do they feel that Capitol Hill is in touch with the problems of ordinary Americans? And which politicians do they distrust the most? These are the simple questions we sought to answer. And we began by asking the public whether they trusted their government on decisions involving military intervention in places like Afghanistan and Iraq, where the goals of peace and stability clearly have not been met. Here's what they said.
Not particularly, because we kind of went in there and then we were like, we're gonna do this, and then we just kind of stuck around not doing anything. I think originally our goals were really kind of well thought out and well intentioned, and then it kind of devolved into what it is now.
I don't think that the government is going about it correctly. I think that it is helpful for Western countries to be involved in what's happening in the Middle East, but I'm not so sure that the government is going about it the right way.
I'm becoming more confident in our government. Over the past couple years, I've had personal experience because my ex-husband was in the military, so I've seen the process firsthand, and I see the good work that's being done.
It depends on the severity of the situation, and because sometimes I feel like most of the decisions that are made are more politically based to gain favor with the public, and it's not more of what is good for each countries.
Well, we've been at war pretty much my entire life, so obviously I'm not going to trust our government to take care of things quickly and efficiently.
I don't, and I don't think you can fight for peace through violence. I do trust them just because I know that they have more insight than I do, and I don't know what's going on really, so I just believe that they have our best interests at heart, because if they don't, then economically we would crash, and they won't want that either.
Our government is controlled by big corporate interests, in my opinion, and the decisions that they make are going to be for the benefit of those corporate interests and not for the interests of peace or democracy.
So, mixed answers from the American public. We put the same questions to our experts.
I don't trust any government to militarily intervene anywhere in the world unilaterally. The only reason they should intervene unilaterally is if there's 1,000 tanks poised for attack on their border or nuclear-tipped missile aimed at their heartland. Having said that, the United States is the world's greatest economic, military, and political power. It is the world's only superpower. And as such, it is in its national interests that there's political stability in every corner of the globe. And it is in everyone's interest that the United States takes a leading role in securing peace and stability everywhere around the world. But it must be done multilaterally, and they should use their power, their political and military and economic power, to construct multilateral agreements and alliances, especially with people in the region that is most affected.
The US doesn't mount wars for peace and stability. It never has, it never will do. It does it because it wants to impose its power on other people. I don't trust them at all, not for a second.
So do Americans take the view that they were wise to spend the billions of dollars on these military interventions? Here's what the public said.
No, I don't think they've helped. They haven't helped us. I don't think they've helped anybody in the Middle East. I just think the whole thing is stupid.
No, that's not wise. I mean, right now, we should be more focused on our economy instead, because, like, I mean, like, with the government shutdown last year, right, made my dad not have to work for a certain time, made my, you know, put more stress on my family. I think, like, we should work more on our economy instead.
Not at all. I think there is a better ways they could have spent that money, both here, and if they wanted to go ahead and spend it overseas, I think there are better things, better projects they could have funneled this money into.
Maybe not as much money. That could have gone to something better for our own country, because we're not doing that well.
What is the point? We don't even know why we got into this war. Like, they told us that 9/11 was about like terrorist attacks, and then like they tell us like it's all about like the war on terror, and then we find out that it's all about gas.
No, I don't think it's wise. I think there's a lot of other things that could be funded, sustainability products, you know, feeding America when you should be, you know.
It's cost of a lot of lives and a lot of pain and suffering, and there's only very few that benefit, the shareholders and the controlling interests of these large corporations that are profiteering from it.
I wouldn't think so. I know there's fear that if we don't spend the money, that things are going to get worse and that we're going to have a more difficult time down the road. But I think I don't know the total money that we've spent, but we've spent billions of dollars in the Middle East, and that's money that we're probably never going to get back and that we could have spent on a lot of other things here.
So how smart has American foreign policy been when it comes to military intervention? Our experts said this.
They failed. They failed because they were unilateral in their approach. If they had gotten lots of support behind them, constructed something properly, then it would have been a different matter. And that is, you know, the cost, the billions and billions of dollars. If you have a multilateral arrangement, then you're not only going to spread the military risk and the political risk, but you're going to spread the financial risk. It won't cost as much. It just makes sense. And secondly, on that point, if you look at it, the question of post-nation or post-conflict nation building, not enough attention is paid to that by the US and other countries. If Afghanistan, the first Afghan war, the one against the Soviet Union, is a perfect example. 10 years the Mujahideen fought against the Russians. They had American support. At the end, the Russians were defeated, they left. So did the Americans. And they left behind a political vacuum. It was quickly filled by extremists from the Taliban and Al-Qaeda. The result was 10 years after the end of the war against Russia, they had a war against the United States. You've got to think of the post-conflict period.
When I look at the cost of the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq, it's just horrendous. The amount of good they could have done with that money. If they wanted to destabilise, say, Saddam Hussein or the regime in Afghanistan, why didn't they buy a better life for everyone in those countries rather than kill them? Because if they were a bigger benefactor than the state leaders in those places who were already there, they would have become very popular. You know, America could, in theory, buy its way to popularity, but it chooses to bomb its way to popularity. I just think that's inhuman.
So how in touch do the citizens of the United States feel their politicians on Capitol Hill actually are when it comes to the daily problems and challenges of American citizens? Here are the candid views of the public.
I don't think they're in touch at all. I think that they're more focused on themselves instead of the people that they represent. Because I know a lot of people here have like way different viewpoints than our own like senators and stuff.
Again, not very much. Yeah, I think it's pretty much the same thing for ordinary people. When it comes to their problems, I think they're more focused on helping rich people than, you know, average people.
They're not in touch with anything because, once again, I think that if they were more in touch with everyday people, they probably wouldn't spend so much money on the projects that they spent on overseas. They wouldn't have neglected the American poor, the literacy rates, just the education system, the healthcare system. I don't think they're in touch at all.
I think privilege and power has a lot to do with money. I think that all these politicians make decisions for people that are so different than them. However, most of the time they haven't even spent a day or a conversation with people that have half of what they have. So I find it kind of hard for these figures to make decisions when they're not informed on the lifestyles of culture and different people in our society, you know.